Welcome. Today we're exploring Stephen Darwall's influential 1997 paper titled Empathy, Sympathy, Care. This groundbreaking work examines the important differences between empathy and sympathy and how both relate to our capacity for caring about others. Stephen Darwall is a renowned philosopher who has made significant contributions to moral philosophy and ethics. His 1997 paper provides crucial insights into how we understand and relate to others' emotions and well-being. Darwall's paper explores several key areas. First, it clarifies the important distinction between empathy and sympathy. Second, it examines how these emotional responses connect to our capacity for caring about others. The paper also discusses different forms of empathic responses and explores the complex relationship between emotion and moral behavior. Here's a preview of one of the key distinctions we'll explore. While both empathy and sympathy involve responding to others' emotions, they work in fundamentally different ways. Empathy involves feeling with someone else, while sympathy involves feeling concern for someone else. Darwall's work also reveals that empathy itself is not a simple single emotion. As this diagram shows, there are different types of empathic responses, each involving different cognitive and emotional processes. Understanding these distinctions helps us better comprehend how we connect with others. Understanding the differences between empathy and sympathy isn't just academic, it has real practical value. These insights help us build better relationships, respond more effectively to others' needs, make more thoughtful moral decisions, and develop greater emotional intelligence in our daily lives. In the sections that follow, we'll take a deeper dive into these concepts. We'll explore the precise definitions of empathy and sympathy, examine their key differences, discuss various forms of empathic experience, and look at real-world applications in areas like healthcare and technology. Let's begin this fascinating exploration of human emotional connection. What exactly is empathy? Empathy is the ability to feel what another person is feeling. It's like an emotional bridge that connects us to others' experiences. We often describe empathy as putting yourself in someone else's shoes. This means imagining yourself in their situation and experiencing their emotions as if they were your own. Think of empathy like emotional mirroring. Just as a mirror reflects your physical appearance, empathy reflects the emotions of others back to you. Here's a real example. When you see a friend crying, you might start to feel sad too. This is empathy in action. You're sharing their emotional state without necessarily thinking about it. Empathy actually has different forms and complexities. As this diagram shows, there are cognitive, emotional, and action-based aspects to empathy, but they all involve feeling with others in some way. Here's an important distinction to remember. Empathy doesn't necessarily mean you care about the person's well-being. It's more about sharing their emotional state in the moment. Feeling with someone is different from caring for someone. Now let's explore sympathy, which goes beyond simply feeling what others feel. Sympathy involves genuine concern for another person's well-being and a desire to help them. Let's see how sympathy differs from empathy. This visual comparison shows the key distinction between these two important emotional responses. Sympathy has three key characteristics that make it unique. First, it involves concern for the other person's well-being. Second, it includes a genuine desire to help. And third, it focuses on the individual person, not just their emotions. Let's use a practical example. Imagine your friend is crying because they failed an important exam. With sympathy, you don't just feel sad alongside them. Instead, you feel concerned about how this affects their future and well-being. Your sympathetic response includes several thoughts and feelings. You worry about their academic future, you want to comfort them, and you think about practical ways to help them succeed next time. The key insight is that sympathy is directed at the person themselves, not just their emotions. You see threats to their well-being as genuine reasons for concern, and this motivates you to take action to help them. Now that we understand what empathy and sympathy are individually, let's explore the key differences between these two important emotional responses. The fundamental difference lies in the prepositions. Empathy is feeling with someone, while sympathy is feeling for someone. Empathy involves sharing and mirroring the actual emotions someone else is feeling. However, empathy doesn't always lead to caring or wanting to help. Sympathy, on the other hand, is fundamentally about caring for someone's well being. It always involves concern for the other person, even if you don't feel their exact emotions. Let's look at some concrete examples to make this clearer. Imagine your friend just lost their job. An empathetic response would involve actually feeling their anxiety and stress yourself. A sympathetic response would focus on caring about their well being and wanting to help, without necessarily feeling their exact emotions. Here's a visual representation that shows this difference clearly. The key insight is this: empathy is about feeling their pain, while sympathy is about wanting to ease their pain. Both empathy and sympathy are valuable emotional responses, but they serve different purposes in our relationships and interactions with others. Darwall identifies three distinct forms of empathy, each representing a different way we connect with others emotionally. Understanding these forms helps us recognize the complexity of human emotional connection. The first form is emotional contagion, the automatic catching of someone else's feelings. This happens without conscious thought, like when you start feeling sad just by being around someone who is upset. Imagine you walk into a room where everyone is laughing. Even without knowing the joke, you might find yourself smiling or feeling lighter. This automatic emotional transmission is emotional contagion at work. The second form is projective empathy, consciously imagining yourself in another person's situation. This involves perspective taking and asking, how would I feel if this happened to me? For example, when you see someone who lost their job, you might think about your own financial responsibilities and imagine how stressed you would feel. You're projecting your own perspective onto their situation. The third form is proto-sympathetic empathy, understanding what it's like for them specifically to feel something. This goes beyond projection to recognize their unique perspective and experience. This form recognizes that each person's experience is shaped by their background, personality, and circumstances. Instead of asking how you would feel, you try to understand how they specifically are feeling given who they are. These three forms of empathy work together to create our complex emotional connections with others. Each serves a different purpose in how we understand and relate to the people around us. Understanding these different forms helps us recognize that empathy is not a single, simple process, but rather a rich and varied way of connecting with others that can happen automatically through imagination or through deep understanding. The empathy altruism hypothesis is one of the most important theories connecting our emotional responses to moral action. This hypothesis suggests a direct pathway from feeling empathy to helping others. According to this hypothesis, when we observe someone suffering, empathy is aroused, which then leads us to provide help simply because the victim needs it. This creates a chain reaction from observation to action. But what exactly do we mean by altruistic motivation? Altruistic motivation means helping others purely for their benefit, not for any personal gain or reward. It's about genuine care for another person's well-being. However, the relationship between empathy and moral behavior is much more complex than this simple pathway suggests. Moral decision-making involves multiple components and considerations beyond just our emotional responses. Research shows that empathy isn't always a direct path to moral behavior. In fact, empathy can sometimes interfere with good moral decision-making by creating bias toward those we feel most connected to. For example, imagine a doctor who feels deep empathy for one patient's suffering. This empathy might lead them to spend excessive time with that patient, potentially neglecting other patients who also need care. The empathy, while well-intentioned, interferes with fair treatment. This is why it's crucial to balance empathy with ethical principles. Good moral decision-making requires both emotional understanding and rational ethical frameworks. We need empathy to connect with others, but we also need principles to guide fair and consistent action. Understanding the empathy altruism hypothesis helps us appreciate both the power and limitations of empathy in moral behavior. While empathy can motivate us to help others, we must combine it with ethical reasoning to make truly moral decisions. Empathy and compassion have powerful real world applications, particularly in healthcare settings. Research consistently shows that when healthcare providers demonstrate empathy, patient satisfaction increases significantly and treatment outcomes improve. When healthcare workers show genuine concern for patients' well being, patients feel more understood and are more likely to follow treatment plans. This empathic connection creates trust between patient and provider. Healthcare systems are now actively working to build empathy into their training programs and patient care protocols. This includes teaching healthcare workers to recognize emotional cues and respond with appropriate compassion. Now we turn to an emerging and fascinating area: artificial intelligence. There's growing interest in developing what researchers call empathic AI, artificial intelligence systems that can recognize and respond to human emotions. AI systems are being developed to recognize facial expressions, voice patterns, and other emotional indicators. The goal is to create technology that can respond appropriately to human emotional states, potentially providing support in healthcare, education, and other fields. However, this raises profound questions about the nature of empathy itself. Can artificial intelligence truly understand and feel human emotions, or is it simply mimicking empathic responses through sophisticated programming? Understanding how emotions are processed in the human brain helps us appreciate the complexity of what AI systems are trying to replicate. The emotional brain involves multiple interconnected regions working together to create our empathic responses. While AI can recognize patterns and respond appropriately, the question remains whether this constitutes genuine empathy or sophisticated mimicry. As these technologies advance, we must carefully consider both their potential benefits and limitations in human care. As we wrap up our exploration of empathy, sympathy, and care, let's review the key takeaways and look at exciting future trends in this important field. First, let's clarify the fundamental distinction we've learned. Empathy is about feeling with someone, experiencing their emotions alongside them. Sympathy, on the other hand, is about caring for someone, having concern for their well-being. Understanding these distinctions is crucial because it helps us build stronger, more meaningful relationships and make better moral decisions in our daily lives. Now, let's explore the exciting future trends and applications of empathy and sympathy research. One fascinating area is the development of empathic artificial intelligence. Researchers are exploring how AI systems can recognize and respond to human emotions, potentially revolutionizing how we interact with technology. In healthcare, empathy and compassion training are becoming increasingly important. Medical professionals are learning how empathic care improves patient outcomes and reduces burnout among healthcare workers. Other exciting research areas include meditation and mindfulness training to develop compassion, understanding empathy's role in moral decision-making, and exploring how these concepts apply across different cultures. The study of empathy and sympathy continues to reveal new insights about human nature and our capacity for connection. As we move forward, these concepts will play increasingly important roles in technology, healthcare, education, and our understanding of what it means to care for one another. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of empathy, sympathy, and care. I hope these insights help you build stronger relationships and make more compassionate choices in your own life.